Good morning to everybody. I would like to welcome you to this first initiative, I have to say, from the Padua University. This initiative is a competition which is called 3 minutes for the PhD thesis presentation. This is a project which is part of the activity of the Coimbra group in Europe. I don't know if you know Coimbra. It's a group of the oldest university throughout Europe. Now there are 40 of them involved. It's a very historical network of universities. As Padua University, we are very proud to be part of it. And thanks to the organization of the Coimbra group, we have different working groups. One of the working groups is dedicated to the PhD, and Professor La Rocca is part of it, so we thank Professor La Rocca for this connection. And actually the idea to contribute with this competition came from the working group on PhD. Personally, I am part of the group on cooperation, and Professor Pacagnella is the link person with the Coimbra group, keeping the connection between the University of Padua and the Coimbra group. In my position as the Vice Rector related to the post-laureate or the research training, we really would like to compete at European level. We have now the candidates that will present the 3 minutes thesis summary. We have a jury. I have to thank the members of the jury that are here since they have to do that job and select the best of you. Then we will have to have another competition with the similar best candidate that the other university will select. And the final winner will be awarded during the General Assembly of Coimbra, which will take place in Edinburgh the first week of June this year. So thanking again all of you that are here. We're really looking forward to have this first competition, and I would like also to thank again who has been supporting you, the coordinator of the PhD, and also Professor Zanovello is here, since we are all looking forward to see and hopefully to have a Padua winner in this European competition. And now for the details, I leave the podium to Professor Milan, who will explain to you exactly how we will go ahead with this competition. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matteo Milan. I'm a professor of contemporary history at the Department of Historical and Geographic Sciences and the Ancient World here at the University of Padua. Of course, it's a pleasure for me to be here today to introduce and to present this competition, which is the first final which is hosted by the University of Padua of this very successful format to improve and to train PhD students in their academic, scientific, and communication skills. The first 3-minute thesis competition was organized by the University of Queensland, Australia, in 2008. And since then, this kind of competition, the format, spread all over the world. And now, in June 2016, so last year, the Coimbra group decided to host a final of the best finalists from very different university members of the Coimbra group. And this final will be hosted at the General Assembly of the Coimbra group in June 2017. As the Vice Rector just remembered, the Coimbra group is an association of some of the most prestigious and oldest university in Europe. And the Coimbra Group 3-minute competition is a competition which is organized in various steps. You already have passed, you are the finalist of your PhD course, you have already passed the first selection, and now today we are here to decide and to find out the finalists of the University of Padua. The presentation, your presentations will be recorded and the videos will be sent to the Coimbra Group Doctoral Studies Working Group, which is the group, as just been remembered, we deal with the PhD and postgraduate studies. This working group will select the best 3 videos, and these finalists will take part to the General Assembly and will compete each other in a final and live competition. The 3-minute competition aims to exercise and develop academic presentation communication skills. And it's also an opportunity for PhD students to share the findings of their research and to maybe also to find out common paths of research. Just let me to remind you some of the basic rules of this competition. First of all, you have only 3 minutes to present your research, and if you exceed this limit, you will get rid of from the competition and excluded from the competition. So it's a very strict limit. So please respect it. And you have only 1 single slide to present your research without any animation, no music, no sound, no motion, anything. You have only 1 static slide. Your presentation will be here at the stage, at the podium, and will start at your first word or movement. And then some judging criteria through which the jury will evaluate your performance. You have to present your research in a very effective way to an audience of non-experts. So please use a plain language and be really clear in presenting your research. You have also to clearly describe the aims and the potential outcomes of your research in order to underline the potential innovative features of your research. And therefore, I will suggest you to follow a clear logical sequence in presenting your arguments. And finally, as I already said, please avoid any very specific scientific jargon in order to allow the public and the audience to evaluate in a proper way your research. But also the enthusiasm that you will show in your presentation will be evaluated, as well as the ability and the skills of capture and maintaining the attentions of the audience throughout the duration of the presentation. And finally, also remember that body language counts, and so be really careful in also in the gesture that will follow your presentation. So I think that we are ready to start. Just a final reminder, usually on average an 80,000 word presentation, the PhD thesis will take 9 hours to be presented. Unfortunately, today you have only 3 minutes, and you have to respect that limit. Thank you very much, and I leave the stage to the first competitors. Okay, please, it's Dr. Oisin McCormack. The stage is yours.
I want to build a star. The sun is our ultimate source of energy. Life on Earth exists because of the light and heat we receive from it every day. Fusion energy is what powers our sun, where heavy hydrogen atoms, called deuterium, are so hot that when they collide, they fuse together, releasing massive amounts of energy. This deuterium fuel is 5 million times more energy dense than fossil fuels, and it is naturally present in all water everywhere, even in these bottles of water here. To give you an example, whoever has flushed their toilet this morning, you've just flushed away about 0.5 gram of deuterium, which is enough fusion fuel to power your entire house for 3 years. With such a clean and unlimited energy source, we could end war, end famine, stop climate change, even start to build cities on other planets. 5 kilometers from here, in my office, we have a fusion reactor. It looks a little different than a star. It's about 10 meters in diameter, and it's in the shape of a donut. And inside our donut, we have our deuterium plasma fuel that is suspended in mid-air by magnets. And this fuel is heated up to 15 million degrees, the same temperature as the core of the sun. But how do we measure such huge temperatures? Well, that's my job. This is me here, the tiny me down there. I shoot a laser into the reactor, which bounces off the fuel. This bouncing is called Thomson scattering. So before scattering, the wavelength of the laser line up in the top right corner looks like a straight line. But when the fuel scatters it, this laser line gets stretched. And the wider it stretches, this means the hotter the fuel is. So we can measure the temperature of the fuel from the width of this curve, and we can also measure the density of the fuel from the area underneath the curve. The temperature and the density are two vital measurements for controlling the reactor and achieving fusion. In my PhD, I develop advanced Thomson scattering techniques. My main project so far was, instead of using a single laser, I took two different lasers and combined them together onto the same path. This gives us a double measurement that is both self-calibrating and more accurate than the single laser method. I was the first person in the world to test out this technique, and it is now being included in new, bigger fusion reactor designs. Fusion is the future, and my job is to help build it.
Okay, I'm calling at the stage Ricardo Peron, who is doing a PhD in, industrial engineering.
In the recent years, fresh water has become a more and more precious resource. The global warming, the increasing population, the increasing demand for food and energy are treating our global hydric resources. We must to reduce losses, but at the same time, we have to increase the efficiency of the processes where water is involved. And here, my research about condensation gets into the game. Condensation occurs when vapor becomes liquid. And here, I've reported three emblematic examples. The first picture shows condensing a power plant. And I want to give you one number. An exchanging area equivalent to 8 soccer fields is required to produce 1 gigawatt of electricity. The other two pictures show two different technologies for the production of fresh water, a desalination plant and a dew harvesting farm. Condensation on a surface can occur in two modes, film-wise and drop-wise mode. During film-wise condensation, a thick layer of condensate wets the surface, and this is a big thermal resistance if you want to exchange heat. So far, on industrial application, condensation occurs in film-wise mode. Drop-wise condensation, in fact, requires surfaces which repel water, and I'm developing eco-friendly treatments to impart hydrophobicity to metal surfaces. Actually, I tried several surfaces and several treatments, and many samples have been sacrificed for this cause, because you have to know that these treatments are tested in quite harsh environment. High temperatures, high vapor velocities, but finally, last year, for the first time, one treatment survived, and here there is the evidence. The efficiency of drop-wise condensation was found to be 6 times higher than that measured during film-wise condensation. And do you remember the previous examples? In a desalination plant and in a dew harvesting farm, we can increase the production of fresh water by several times. And as regards to the production of electricity, we can reduce those condensate size, or we can increase the production of electricity. We can choose. I want to stress that this cannot be the unique answer to the world's water crisis. This is just a drop in the ocean. But isn't the ocean made of a multitude of drops? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. And I call at the stage Camilla Stagni, who is a PhD candidate in clinical and experimental oncology and immunology.
Until recently, all patients diagnosed with the same type of cancer received the same type of therapy, usually standard chemotherapy with highly toxic drugs. However, not all of them responded in the same way. Some recovered quickly, others got worse, others experienced toxicities, and doctors didn't understand why. This was true also for melanoma, the malignancy that I am studying. Melanoma is the most aggressive form of skin cancer, with the potential to spread in the body even from tumors smaller than a grain of sand. Patients diagnosed with advanced stage melanoma had little chance of surviving if treated with standard chemotherapy. But fortunately, cancer research has recently highlighted the key role of DNA mutations present in tumor cells in determining the clinical response. Indeed, it was found that each cancer has distinct DNA changes, which make it, and therefore each patient, unique. This implies that cancers are different and that cancer patients are different, and what helps one can be neutral at best or even dangerous for another. This concept led to the development of targeted therapies, a new treatment approach which selectively tailors the genetic features of each cancer. Current targeted treatments for melanoma are aimed at blocking a specific mutation which promotes tumor growth. This new approach has significantly improved the survival of metastatic melanoma patients. However, still, some of them don't respond or become quickly resistant, and we don't know why. During my PhD, I investigated why some patients respond to the therapy and others don't. For this purpose, I identified a group of melanoma patients diagnosed at advanced stages who received targeted treatments. I profiled the DNA of their tumor samples. I quantified the amount of mutated and non-mutated gene targeted by the drug and the direct correlations with the clinical response. Interestingly, I found that the ratio of mutated and non-mutated gene influences the response of the patient to the therapy, with those patients having fewer mutated copies having a poor response. This study yields insight that might help doctors to select those patients that are most likely to benefit from targeted therapies. Although much work still must be done, we are certainly moving toward a personalized cancer care, whereby each patient will be treated with the most suitable and effective therapy. Cancer is smart, and we must outsmart cancer to fight it. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla. Our next finalist is Alessandra Bettiol, who is a PhD candidate in pharmacological sciences.
So when a new drug enters the market, we have data coming from clinical trials which are performed on a selected group of patients, which are like Armani or Gucci models. And these data are called efficacy of a drug. But these results do not always exactly predict what will happen in the real world, because real patients, like me and you, are all different, can be older, and can have severe other pathologies. And this is called effectiveness. And the discrepancy between efficacy and effectiveness is particularly crucial in the field of oncologic treatments, because oncologic drugs are very, very expensive, and their effectiveness is critical for patient survival. In my PhD project, I focus on a particular type of oncohematologic disease, which is chronic myeloid leukemia, CML. Current treatments for CML are based on tyrosine kinase inhibitors, TKIs, which are imatinib, or newer and much more expensive, second-generation TKIs, which are dasatinib or nilotinib. And the aim of my PhD project was to provide evidence from the real world on the use and on the effectiveness of these treatments. To pursue this aim, I performed observational studies from administrative databases and physicians' patients' diary in the local health authority of Treviso in Italy for the period from 2005 to 2015. Over this decade, prevalence of CML practically doubled, and this was mainly due to the great effectiveness of TKI, which accounted for a good control of the pathology and a long-term patient survival. And in particular, newer second-generation TKI displayed a much higher effectiveness, and patients treated with these drugs did not need to switch to another treatment. On the other hand, 38% of patients treated with imatinib needed to change treatment, mainly because of severe intolerance. So in light of this study provided evidence for the real practice use of newer TKIs in the real clinical practice, although they cost much more than imatinib. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandra. Now we have Alessandro Zorzi, PhD in Medical, Clinical, and Experimental Sciences.
Science is about numbers, but medicine is about people. So to summarize my PhD thesis, I'm going to tell you about the story of two young athletes. The first one, on the top left, was Pier Mario Morosini, a professional soccer player who had undergone several medical evaluations throughout his career, and he was always considered healthy. Nevertheless, in 2012, he dropped dead in the field. He died suddenly because of an irregular heart rhythm, an arrhythmia. The autopsy revealed the cause of this arrhythmia to be the presence of a scar in his heart, as you can see on the bottom left. That was probably the result of a genetic disease he was unaware of. During the following years in our hospital, we found many other athletes with serious arrhythmias and scar in their heart. But the only way to detect this problem in a living person is to perform magnetic resonance, which is a very expensive investigation, so you cannot do it in every athlete. So we asked ourselves how we could do to early detect this problem before it causes serious events. So what we did was to offer athletes the possibility to have their heart rhythm recorded for 24 hours with a little machine of this size, which is called Holter, that you can carry on your belt, and there are some wires attached to your chest that record the heart rhythm while you do your normal life. You can even practice sport. So if we found arrhythmias in this recording, then we send the athlete to do the magnetic resonance. And then comes the second story on the top right. The one is called Stefano. He's an 18-year-old runner who was completely healthy when he decided, together with other 500 athletes, to participate in my study. So we did the heart rhythm recordings, and while he was running, there were some arrhythmias unexpectedly. So we sent him to do the magnetic resonance, and unfortunately, as you can see on the bottom right, we found a scar in his heart. So we had to stop him from running, and that was a very painful decision because he really liked to do that, but it was for his health. So we stopped him, but after 2 years, he's still alive, while he could have died. And he's one of other 5 athletes with a scar that we found thanks to our investigation. So in conclusion, the results of my thesis demonstrate that it may be possible to predict, to detect early scars in the athlete's heart, thus preventing deaths like the one of Morosini and saving their lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alessandro. Now I'm calling Lindsay Ellison Stinson. She's a PhD candidate in linguistic, philological, and literary sciences.
So, imagine that after you retire, you leave your computer in the office. Now imagine somebody taking everything you've ever written on that computer and dumping it into a folder. What would the folder contain? Well, a lot of different things. There is going to be some literature, of course, maybe a book you published or an article you've written. Then there is going to be some work-related stuff, such as emails or memos. But there is also going to be a lot of, well, stuff. Bookmarks, quotes, links, a discarded version of a paper, or the first chapter of the novel you started to write but never bothered to finish. With some minor differences, this is what happened to a man called William Fowler, who was also in the business of writing for a living. His papers, too, were stashed away at the beginning of the 17th century and are now part of the Autumn Den manuscripts. In my research, I'm using several techniques and crisscrossing the information I find to discover the details of one man's life and career and of the places, people, and things that matter to him. Although Fowler is no Shakespeare, His papers can give us something that Shakespeare's plays cannot. Like no other manuscript, Arthur then gives us an insider's view on the mechanisms, social, economic, that governed the life of intellectuals, then as well as now. The early modern period, too, is a very important moment for the definition of Europe as we know it. It is not a coincidence if programs such as the Erasmus program are named after a 16th century humanist. As many others, Fowler was part of an international network of printers, writers, thinkers, heretics, spanning all the way from Padua to Paris to Aberdeen. The cosmopolitan network in which Fowler and his colleagues moved is the first seed of supranational Europe. To understand the dynamics of economic exchange in early modern Europe is to understand how we all came to be European. And right in this moment, maybe knowing more about how it all started might help us to figure out where it's going next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. And now Andrea Zangrossi is a PhD candidate in psychological sciences. Thank you.
So I guess all the people in this room has bumped into this QR code at least once in life. You can find it on many packaging, on many products. It's a matrix of black and white squares, and if you look at it, it seems meaningless. However, using some smartphone apps, you can simply take a picture of it, and then an algorithm recognizes the specific pattern of squares and send you to the web page of the product. What if the same process would be applied to the brain? Well, actually, we can take pictures of the brain through magnetic resonance imaging, and thanks to a method called multivoxel pattern analysis, or MVPA, you can predict mental states starting from brain imaging data. That's why this approach has been called brain reading or mind reading. MVPA is realized by training a pattern classification algorithm on a set of brain scans belonging to two classes in order to learn how they can be discriminated. MVPA can be applied to functional MRI images in order to detect specific mental states, for example, whether a subject is thinking about the answer yes or no, or it can be applied to structural MRI images to detect general mental states, for example, for the automatic detection of Alzheimer-like brains. In my PhD thesis, I performed 4 experiments in which we tested the application of this method on 2 topics using structural and functional MRI data. In the application on structural images, we predicted the level of education starting from the analysis of the gray matter of the brain with an accuracy of 75%. Then we went a step further on a second sample, highlighting which brain areas were the most informative for the decoding of the educational level. In the application on functional images, we analyzed fMRI data during a memory task to infer whether subjects possessed specific information in their memory. In the first experiment, participants were asked to look at pictures of previously visited and non-visited rooms, and we recognized which rooms have been visited before with an accuracy of 80%. In a second study, participants were reading true and false sentences about a specific event in their life, and we recognized true memories with an accuracy of 90%, starting from the analysis of the pattern of brain activity. So to conclude, we applied MVPA approach on 2 topics using structural and functional MRI data. And in both cases, we found that the information about mental states is encoded in the brain, and that can be accurately decoded through these techniques. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I call at the stage Lucia Zanotto, PhD in statistics.
I'd like to speak about death. So as you can see, I decided to anticipate Halloween. In the past, the image of death was a woman's skeleton. I never understood why precisely a woman, but nobody cares except women, you know. Death was portrayed with her psyche. She cut degrees in the fields without any differentiation, so the same probability of death at every age. Then Pearson arrived, and life, or better, death, changed. Stop thinking at death like a gamble with dice. Respect just a little bit. Death is a marksman who takes his aim during the breach of life. One by one, individuals fell out from the ranks, terribly many during the early infancy, many in childhood, few in youth, more in mid-age, but many more at older age. My research saw different probability of death at every age. My research focuses on the distribution of death, and as some people say, I like to count the death. And it is true, but I want to do it with style. I am a statistician, or I try to be, so what is death for me? It's a probability, and to model it, I need a probability density function. Unfortunately, there is not a distribution that have the same shape of the death curve, but I can create it. My idea is to use a mixture of distribution. For infant childhood mortality, a J-curve is required, and the half-normal distribution is perfect for our aim. The adult distribution seems like an half-hill, and the skew-normal distribution was employed also to control the degree of skewness. We discovered that accidental and premature mortality have a very flat but skewed distribution, so we employed another skew-normal distribution. The main advantage of my model is the possibility to compute in explicit form the life expectancy at birth, dividing among the three different mortality components. My model is very flexible, is able to follow death because she likes to follow new trends to be different for countries. I need to admit, if you think about death as the end of your life, it is a bit depressing. But it is also true that we appreciate life because there is death. Life and death are in the same side of the same coin. The other side is still unknown. Charlie Brown says, one day we will all die. And Snoopy replied, true, but on all the other we will not. I hope not to bore you to death. Enjoy your life.
Thank you very much, Lucia. And now we have, I hope to pronounce correctly, Farizadeh Khosrowshahi Siamak. Thank you very much. He is a PhD candidate in space sciences, technology, and measurement.
Okay, let me start with a simple example. Imagine, oh shit, I forgot it. Sorry. Okay, imagine that you want to punch a wall, which is made of concrete and is covered by a layer of soft plastic. Then you remove the cover and repeat punching. Which one is more painful? Of course, the one which is not covered. But why? The answer is related to the flexibility of the cover. The soft plastic is less resistant against external force and can absorb the energy due to its deformation. This is exactly what a personal protective equipment like a helmet does during an accident. It can absorb the energy of the accident and save our body. But how we can decide which material is the best to be used in a personal protective equipment like a helmet? Exactly at this point, my research starts. My research is about finding the best material which can absorb the energy of the impact as much as possible during a motorcycle accident. In order to find out what material is the best for a helmet, for example, you may make different helmets using different materials and hit a wall using those helmets. And if you stay alive, you may say which material is the best one to be used. But fortunately, nowadays we have more clever tools and instruments in order to answer such a question. We can simulate the accidents virtually by softwares, like you can see on the right side of the slide. And using these simulations, we can measure quantities like velocities, accelerations, even the risk of injuries like brain injury. And using these quantities, we can identify which material is the best one to be used in a personal protective equipment in order to absorb the energy of the impact as much as possible and reduce the risk of injuries and save more lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Cinzia Bettineschi She's a PhD candidate in history, criticism, and preservation of cultural heritage.
Ancient Egypt has always been perceived as the land of mysteries. With this project, we aim to shed light on the one regarding the long-lost glass inlay workshop discovered within the Temple of Teptunis in the Fayum oasis. Nowadays, glass is an essential part of our everyday life. Think about it for a second. Windows, jewelry, smartphones, glass is everywhere. Yet, before the introduction of glass blowing in Roman times, glass was a rare and expensive good, produced only in very limited quantities and often employed as a substitute of gemstones, such as in the extraordinary examples that you can see here. And that is why Teptunis is so special. No other Egyptian village has provided us with an almost intact glassworking context of Ptolemaic age. The site was excavated in the early 30s of the 19th century by the Italian archaeological mission in Egypt, which was led by Carlo Anti, professor and later head of the University of Padova. Unfortunately, after the end of the excavations, the temple was partially destroyed by illegal looters and covered by the sands of the desert. So, how can we study that precious context today? Well, we started from archival data in order to locate the exact position of the workshop and its kiln, and went on to consider the tools and the vitreous materials which were found there and that are now preserved at the Egyptian Museum of Turin, Italy. But studying those artifacts from a stylistic and archaeological point of view was not enough for us. In order to understand the glass production and manufacture technologies and the raw materials used, we needed in-depth scientific investigations. And that's where my thesis comes in. Imagine glass making like baking. You need specific oven conditions and ingredients in precise amounts if you want your cake to turn out fine. However, as you all know, recipes tend to change through time and space. What I'm trying to do in my PhD is to reconstruct the recipes from the cakes. And since the recipes are time and place specific, we can now identify the chemical and the mineralogical markers of the raw materials used. This is helping us to appreciate the evolution of glassmaking through time, to reconstruct glass trade in the ancient world, to understand the cultural role of vitreous materials, and finally to have a glance into pre-Roman production technologies. But it's not only about glass, it's about people. People that contributed to the evolution of a technology we couldn't live without. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cinzia. And now we have our last finalist, Elisa Baccini. She's a PhD candidate in historical, geographical, and anthropological studies.
In recent years, Napoleon's cultural imperialism has been a theme at the center of the historical debate on French domination in Italy. I wonder, why don't study that matter not only from the point of view of cultural politics in general, but focusing in particular on French language? As answer to this question, my research has the goal to analyze aspects and implications of Napoleonic cultural policy, in response about the ways of execution and reception of his project, which involves in various ways all Italian territories. Theaters, for example, was used as one of the key tools for the Francization of the Italian, because Napoleon, aware of the educational power of theater, used it to promulgate French ideas and culture, but most of all, he used it as a way to spread French language among the Italian population. In fact, introduced two companies of actors whom actually playing French in all the main stages of Italian theaters. Regarding the educational system, was introduced the teaching of French in all the schools and academies, all of which were conceived as a place of propagation on French language and literature. But another interesting aspect of this matter is the language relationship between French and Italian officials. The question is, in which language they communicate? My response is that they communicate in French, but in my research shows that the situation was complicated and the communication was not simple at all. Finally, press is another privileged aspect of this investigation, because the French government sponsored the French publication, but were the same Italian publishers who saw in the printings of books in French a very lucrative market. In conclusion, concerning the more general cultural policy issue, my research tried to analyze, on the linguistic and cultural ground, the rigidity of Napoleonic cultural imperialism. My answer to that question is yes, because Napoleon, besides imposing his government on his hegemony, imposed the entire French cultural system, and with it, his language, setting off major changes in the Italian society of Risorgimento. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elisa. We are a little bit early, so I will remember you that in a few minutes the jury will move to the Sala del Caminetto over there to deliberate the scores, and the winner of after the jury's deliberation will get an iPad as a prize. I think it's quite nice, while at the same time the audience will score its own choice, and there is a sort of ballot box over there in which the audience can choose and put over here, sorry. You can choose the best presentation and the best finalist. Just remind you that this finalist will have a Kindle, which is not bad as well. In a few minutes, also, the summer refreshment will be ready in the next room. So I will ask you to decide to think a little bit about the best finalist in your opinion, and then to use this more handmade ballot box over here. I think that it was a great overview of the most exciting and potentially groundbreaking research we are currently taking place here at the University of Padua. So I will thank you, everybody, and thank you very much to be here. Thank you very much to the finalists for having presented the very exciting research. And good luck, everyone. So waiting for the refreshment, just final greetings to our finalists. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the evaluation was really not easy. Overall, we have a sort of cluster of a group of you with a very similar score, high score, which is good. I think being the first edition, we should be very happy about the quality of your presentation. I will read to you the three people that got the first position, and with the same score, the second position. I understand for the second position doesn't mean anything to you, but just to let you know that the second position with the same score was Danotto and Bettineschi. So I think an applause. And the winner, who will represent Padua at the Coimbra competition, is Oisin McCormack. Yes. So congratulations. I think it's the first time that an Irish will represent Italy. So
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. We also have the results from the people vote, and I have to say that Zanotto is the winner. So congratulations. Congratulations. So I would like to thank you very much for this first edition. I think we have learned a lot for next year, so be prepared and communicate to your colleagues that we are going to repeat this competition next year. And we really would like to enlarge, to have more people, according to the coordinators and to your group of PhD, to do the same and to make the competition even stronger. So thank you very much, and see you the next year.
So I am here to give you your award. So
Thank
many congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And this is for you. Thank you.